LCSC students of medieval history, Professor Eric Martin here, and welcome to week 5. Let's talk a little bit about what we've done, where we're going, and what's happening this week, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I have not received a lot of traffic in my office hours from the students in this class, and that's cool. I assume that means everything is going well. So you guys just continue on with your thing. Let's talk a little bit about the discussion boards. The discussion boards you guys are doing a pretty good job with. Mine looks a little bit different than yours. So we've been involved in our discussions. Kind of what you're supposed to be doing, at least right now, is we're in our discussions about the Valerie Hansen book, Year 1000. And frankly, you don't have a whole lot of reading every week. When we only cover one chapter, it's like 30 pages. When we cover 2 chapters, it's 60 pages. And the idea behind that is you're supposed to be working on putting together your annotated bibliography and figuring out the outside sources you're going to be reading for this class, okay? And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but don't let that sneak up on you. The other thing that you don't want to let sneak up on you is that Eleanor Yanga book, Yaniga book, the Middle Ages, that graphic novel. Go ahead and get that, all right? Because when we finish this, before you know it, there's going to be an assignment on it. So just make sure you have it. So, what we've done so far is, really setting up the Hansen book as the year 1000. She's making this argument. The year 1000 is really this important marker in terms of entering the history of globalization, if that's what you want to take a look at. And then she looks at the Vikings and that interconnection with Northern Europe, and particularly Northern North America. She takes a look at the material in terms of what's happening roughly year 1000, Central America, North America, really sort of America with the big A, kind of looking to see what's happening there, looking at the development of roads and connections in that area. Revisits some of the Viking stuff in particular in chapter 4, looking at some of the European slave trade stuff, particularly coming out of the Black Sea and down with the Rus and that kind of thing. Now, one of the things that I've moved to, and I talked about this in a previous video, but I'm just going to talk about it now. I've switched up the format to basically using the same kind of format I want you to use for the book analyses. Okay, so you're going to be writing a book analyses on a couple of books of your choosing. One of them is on the syllabus and set up. The other one I don't think I've done yet. But you're going to be using this format. It seemed to me that we ought to just be using this format in the discussions. I like the way that's going. Here's the other thing. One of the, I mentioned this in the original video I shot. It was not clear to me that the workload for this class was entirely reasonable, kind of the way I had it initially set up. So what I want to do is I want to try to make as much of our writing for the course formal writing in the discussion boards. So what I'm getting at here is I don't think we're going to have an official review over the year 1000. You guys are just going to do that as we go, and maybe we'll have some grand conclusions at the end, but this is getting us used to the idea of book breakdowns, and we'll just do it chapter by chapter, and as we go a little bit further in the book, there may be fewer and fewer of us responsible for breaking it down. All right, but in general, I'm pretty happy with the way the discussions are going. You guys have done a good job breaking it up by the letters of your last name, getting involved, and then we'll repeat this process to some degree as we move a little bit forward. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. Now, what we're doing this particular week is you've got the initial draft of your annotated research bibliography due, and this video will be right up here in a second when I get it done. I want to come back to the initial draft of the annotated research bibliography. Then, what you're doing this week, just one chapter, everyone, looking at the chapter on the world's richest man. And really what we're looking at here is the Kingdom of Mali and North Africa and the development of the Islamic Empire during the medieval period. I only assigned you one chapter. I only assigned you 2 videos. You should watch more than that. I want to talk about that here in a second. So here we go. The requirement is to watch Africa Episode 3, Caravans of Gold. If you've had me for History 101, you may have had to watch this already. If you had me for African history, you may have watched this already. I love this video series. I assign it anytime I can. Watch the video. This video is actually pretty cool, and I'll give you a little breakdown on how to take your notes on this particular video. Basil Davidson has a video series, and that entire video series has a thesis that is a pretty simplistic thesis, but it's an interesting thesis in which he makes the argument that Africa has a history of its own. That's his thesis. And then each video has a sub-thesis designed to support that. So here is the video focused on Africa during the medieval period, and really focused on the African economy during the medieval period in an effort to support his broader thesis, Africans have a history of their own. So pay attention to his rundown of how the economy during the medieval period worked in West Africa and Mali. Pay attention to his rundown on the importance of places in North Africa, such as Marrakesh. Pay attention to his importance of the rundown of cities like Cairo. Cities like Cairo. There's no other city like Cairo. Cairo. And then working his way down the East African coast into the Swahili region. Pay attention to all that, because really he's setting up, this is what the African economy looks like in the medieval period. That's what I want you to get out of that video. The next, and then there's a link here to episode 4 in that same series that is also focused on the medieval period, looking at African kings and African cities. This video, there we go, get it to do this. This is optional, okay? You want to watch it, it's worth your time. And you should talk about it in the discussions. I'll bring that up in a second. This video, episode 3, which is also located down here, not optional. Okay, let's talk about your next not optional video. Islam, Empire of Faith, Part 2, The Awakening. This is a pretty cool video. It's a 3-part video, really looking at the development and role of the Islamic Empire. The episode 2 focuses on the golden age of Islam in terms of philosophy, medicine, science, economy. So it overlaps with the Basil Davidson video, particularly when you think about that entire North African realm and also East Africa being connected into this, but then it expands out further than that. So it's really looking at the different kinds of advancements and achievements the world of Islam was involved in roughly year 1000. So I want you to take your notes on that, bring them to the table for the discussion board. However, I probably ought to assign this one too. Part 1. And it's just the what is Islam? Where did it come from? What is it about? I'm operating off a bit of a false assumption that a lot of you guys have already had that. I would suggest watching that. And less so part 3, but it's still interesting looking at the development of the Ottomans, particularly as you move into closer to that roughly 1500 period. I get it. It's a lot of video for this week when you've got other things to do, right? So we've got 2 hours of video in addition to the chapters. I'd really like to see you do 3 hours of video in addition to the chapters. This stuff is super useful. It's all kid friendly, it's family friendly, watch away, learn something new. But I also understand that we can only do so much each week, right? So I'm trying to play that game. Now, let's go to the discussions for this, and let me show you how we're going to do this. And I'm making an effort to simplify them. We'll see whether it's working. It is exactly the same as the last couple of weeks, right? You're going to start off with that first section, looking at the chapter from the year 1000 on the author's purpose, historical issues, that kind of stuff. Second section on sources. Second part, just kind of summarizing the breakdown, how they go about doing it. This part right here, fit the course material in. All right. This has the potential this particular week to be extremely long, and that's cool because I think this is where the 2 discussions of the videos come in. I was real tempted to make separate discussions for the videos after we try this. You guys let me know whether I should have done that or not. It just seemed like it was adding one more moving part. I wanted to see if we could do this with with as few moving parts as possible. But if you watch the videos first, take notes about them, get an idea about what's going on, and then when you read the chapter, things you want to bring up where the videos connect to stuff, or where they expand, or where they do a good job of showing stuff that was in the chapter or contradicting stuff in the chapter, it all goes in the 4th section. So the 4th section has the potential to be long, depending on how you guys want to approach it. All right. Back to the business about annotated research bibliographies. All right. These are due Valentine's Day. You can get them in earlier if you want. We talked about those in the last video. But the point is you're putting together resource materials for a presentation over your final essay and for a final essay. And don't have to make it harder than it needs to be. The formal essay is up here, right? We're looking at an 8-page, 2,000-word essay using all the course materials, at least 2 pre-approved outside readings. And that's what we're doing here. Okay? Because those at least 2 pre-approved outside readings, and it's an at least 2, are going to be way easier if you spend a little bit of time going through a sifting process to find the best sources. You want some fun sources, you want some informative sources, you want sources that focus on the topic that you want. So the way I envision the class, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. The way I envision the class is not a whole bunch of separate projects. it's a medieval history research course where you pick a project and you learn something about the medieval history on your own. This is how you do research on your own. While you're being guided and going through this book with your colleagues, we've got videos and other materials, a few other books, and me kind of, supervising it as we go. That is how I envision this working. So in order to get to the formal essay, which is, for lack of a better way to put it, in the course of the semester, what have you learned about the medieval period? And you can pick anything you want, but you should be thinking of a thing at this point. You want to focus on Central America? Awesome. You want to focus on fashion in the Tang Dynasty in China? Awesome. You want to focus on sanitation systems throughout the medieval period? Awesome. But it's time to start kind of figuring something out, and that's what this annotated research thing is. You are to have a introduction with something like 150 words, right? A paragraph that describes this is the thing I want to focus on. All right? And then a bibliography that lays out, I can find sources on the thing I want to talk about. And each of these sources should have, a 1 or 2 sentence description about what the source is, right? Whatever. This site leads to a digital version of a UNESCO heritage site, looking at the, oldest Mayan temples. This book is written by one of the premier, historians of the Maya, and I expect to find these things. It does not mean that you've read this material. It means you've scouted it, and you've got a project that you can fit in with this and the rest of the stuff we're going to do, and that you have access to sources for. And then, one little twist on it, you need to be figuring out your first book that you're going to write a formal research analysis on. I'm flipping through. The syllabus says that's due on Thursday, March the 9th. You still have a little bit of time, but you will write a formal book analysis. You got plenty of time to read the book, but you want to start honing in a little bit on which books you want to focus on. That's what this whole annotated research project is, to help make sure you pick the right books and that you can kind of really get into them. So that's what we're doing for this week. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about... you guys can see some things on here that you're not going to be able to see on yours. But notes. We talked about notes. Notes for the week. Things you've been learning for the week. The way you've been keeping your notes. So week 2, Jasper and Anthony were supposed to give us some notes. I don't see any notes. Week 4. That's last week, huh? Barbara and Andrew. I don't see any notes. Oh, hold on. That's actually this week. I'm a week ahead shooting the videos. Week 3, April and Jackson. All right, nice. Now we got some notes here. Boy, we got a lot of notes. Yeah, this is perfectly reasonable. right? Just giving us some ideas about what's going on. It's cool for me to see your notes. It's cool for you to post your notes. It's cool for other people to get a look at what notes look like. So keep in mind that I am trying to get us to do a few other things, such as posting our notes, to streamline the work that we're doing in the class, so we don't have what sometimes appears like random assignments. All right. I think that's all I have to say. Let me go back to this and just double check. Yeah. Okay. So that should be the plan for this week. And I will work on getting the plan for next week put together, and a video. And you guys should figure out by now that, like, when the video comes up in the module, that's the final draft of the plan. What's up there right now is the rough draft. It's pretty close. Material wise, it's probably real close, but try not to shoot ahead too far. If you need to shoot ahead with something, annotated bibliography, start doing the readings for your project. That's where you want to focus on getting ahead. If you just have to get ahead, then let's me and you talk about what a good book would be for you to review, and let's start getting you into that book. All right. As usual, I'm available, right? To virtual class doesn't only mean virtual availability. If you guys are welcome to come to my office hours in the office. Those are Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10:30 to 11:30. But I bet for most of you, the better bet is to pop onto Zoom at some point. I send out those emails most of the time when I get on Zoom. Not always. Sometimes I get on Zoom, don't send them out. But most of the time when I get on Zoom, I do that. And if you want just to make an appointment, we can work it like that. So I think that's all I have to say. If I don't hear from you, I'm assuming all is well. Enjoy your historical studies.